My name is Anais. I'm 28 years old, and I just walked into my Boston apartment to find my younger sister Anne sprawled across my couch, surrounded by moving boxes and suitcases. The door was unlocked, which should have been my first warning. Anne casually mentioned our mother gave her a key to move in while I was at work. My hands trembled as I processed this violation. I never gave anyone permission to copy my keys. This betrayal would shatter everything. Before we dive into this family drama, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please hit that like button if you've ever dealt with boundary-crossing family members, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories. Trust me, what happens next will leave you speechless. Have you ever had family members who think your success means they own a piece of your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below as we unravel this tale of manipulation, betrayal, and ultimately, liberation. That morning had started like any other. I woke up at 5:30, went through my usual routine of coffee shower and reviewing case notes for the Peterson merger I'd been working on for 3 months. My position at Whitman and Associates wasn't just a job. It was everything I'd sacrificed for since law school. The presentation scheduled for that afternoon could make or break my chances at the senior associate position I'd been eyeing. Standing in my violated living room that evening, I watched Anne stretch lazily on my expensive leather couch, the one I'd saved 6 months to afford. She was wearing my silk blouse, the one I'd bought for court appearances. "What are you doing here, Anne?" I managed to ask, though my voice shook with barely controlled rage. She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Mom said you'd be cool with it. I got kicked out of my place. That witch landlord totally overreacted about 3 months of rent. Like, who can even afford rent these days?" My phone buzzed. Mother. Of course. "Aeneas, before you start being difficult, family helps family. I knew you'd make excuses if I asked, so I took initiative. Anne needs somewhere to stay, and you have that big apartment all to yourself." Her voice carried that familiar tone of entitlement mixed with accusation. "When did you make copies of my keys?" I demanded. "Oh, weeks ago," she replied casually. "That nice man at the hardware store on Fifth Avenue made 3 copies for me. I figured it would come in handy." The violation cut deeper than just the physical intrusion. This was planned, calculated. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks attending family dinners where Mother praised my success to her friends, she'd been orchestrating this invasion behind my back. "You're being selfish, Anais," she continued. "Have you forgotten where you came from? How we all sacrificed for your education. This is the least you can do." Anne had already made herself comfortable, apparently. My bedroom door stood open, and I could see my closet doors ajar. "I borrowed a few things for job interviews," she said, following my gaze. "Though, honestly, your style is so boring. All blacks and grays. Where's the fun?" Job interviews. Right. The same woman who just admitted she hadn't paid rent in 3 months was supposedly job hunting in my $800 court suits. "I need you both out. Now." The words came out steadier than I felt. Anne laughed, actually laughed. "Don't be such a drama queen. I just need a few weeks to get back on my feet. 2 months tops. Besides, I already told Brandon he could crash here too. He's parking the car." Brandon, her unemployed boyfriend who spent his days gaming and talking about becoming a cryptocurrency millionaire. The same one who'd borrowed $500 from our cousin Tracy 6 months ago and ghosted her. My hands clenched into fists. "Absolutely not. You have 10 minutes to pack your things and leave, or I'm calling the police." Mother's voice screeched through the phone speaker. "The police? On your own sister? What would grandmother think? She's already heartbroken about how distant you've become. This might kill her." The guilt trip express right on schedule. But I was done being the family ATM, and doormat rolled into one. As I stood there calculating the damage, the financial reality hit me. My student loans consumed 30% of my salary. Rent took another 40%. Between utilities, food, and basic necessities, I barely managed to save $200 a month. Supporting Anne and her boyfriend would bankrupt me within weeks. But pointing this out would only invite more lectures about my fancy job and how I must be rolling in money because I wore suits to work. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Aunt Melinda, Uncle Robert, Cousin Tracy, even Great Aunt Geraldine, who barely knew how to use Facebook. Anne had posted a masterpiece of manipulation on social media, heartbroken that my own sister would rather see me homeless than share her luxury apartment. Some people forget their roots when they get fancy degrees. The comments poured in like acid rain. Shame on you, Anais. Money changes people. Your mother is crying her eyes out. Each notification felt like another knife twisting in my gut. These people who'd never offered Anne any help were quick to volunteer my resources. By 10 a.m., the calls started. Uncle Robert Mother's brother led the charge. Your mother tells me you're being difficult. That apartment has 2 bedrooms, doesn't it? What's the harm in helping Anne for a few weeks? I tried explaining that Anne had a history of few weeks turning into years, but he cut me off. Family is family, Anais. Don't let that fancy education make you forget that. The word fancy dripped with resentment. The same education they'd all praised at family gatherings now became a weapon against me. Aunt Melinda called next, her voice syrupy sweet. Honey, I know Anne can be challenging, but she's lost. You're the stable one, the successful one. It's your responsibility to guide her. My concentration shattered. I fumbled through my presentation preparation. The Peterson merger documents blurred together as my phone continued its assault. Then, at 2 p.m., just as I was about to enter the conference room, our receptionist Grace approached with an uncomfortable expression. Anais, there's a woman in the lobby claiming to be your mother. She's making quite a scene. My blood ran cold. I rushed to the lobby to find Mother in full performance mode, tears streaming down her face as she gestured dramatically to anyone who'd listen. My own daughter won't help her homeless sister. I raised her better than this. All those years of sacrifice, and this is how she repays me. Several clients waited uncomfortably in the leather chairs, witnessing this soap opera. Barnaby, the senior associate from corporate law who I'd harbored a crush on for months, stood near the elevators, his expression unreadable. My career, my reputation, everything I'd built crumbled in real time. Mother, please, let's discuss this outside. I kept my voice low, professional, desperately trying to salvage the situation. She jerked away from my gentle touch on her elbow. Don't you dare dismiss me like I'm some client. I'm your mother, the woman who gave you life. Security approached and I wanted to disappear into the marble floor. Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice or leave the premises, the guard said firmly. Mother's eyes flashed. This is what you've become. Anais having your own mother thrown out. Anne said you'd changed, but I didn't believe it until now. After security escorted her out, I stood in the lobby feeling dozens of eyes on me. The whispers had already started. Barnaby approached, his green eyes sympathetic. That was rough. Want to grab coffee and decompress? I almost cried at the kindness in his voice. I have the Peterson presentation in 5 minutes, I managed. Richards postponed it until tomorrow. He saw the commotion. Of course. My family drama was now affecting firm business. Barnaby guided me to the coffee shop across the street where I unloaded the whole story. He listened without judgment, occasionally wincing at the worst parts. My sister pulled something similar last year, he said finally. Showed up at my place with a moving truck assuming she could stay indefinitely. Family can be the worst sometimes, especially when money's involved. His understanding felt like a life preserver in a storm. That evening, I discovered Anne had given my spare key to Brandon. They'd thrown a housewarming party in my absence. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, cornered me in the hallway. The music was so loud I couldn't hear my television. That young man was smoking something funny smelling on your balcony. I nearly called the police. Inside my apartment reeked of weed and spilled beer. Pizza boxes littered my coffee table, and someone had used my grandmother's china as ashtrays. The china grandmother had given me, saying it would bring me luck in my new home. Anne lounged in my bed wearing my pajamas, FaceTiming someone about her uptight sister who's having a mental breakdown over nothing. The rage that filled me was pure and cleansing. I disconnected the Wi-Fi router, cutting her call short. "Get out, now!" Anne's eyes widened at my tone. "You can't just kick me out." "Mom said me sham." "I don't care what Mom said. You're trespassing, both of you. Leave, or I'm calling the police." Brandon emerged from my bathroom, clearly high, wearing my bathrobe. My 1200 thread count Egyptian cotton bathrobe. "Chill out, sis. We're family now." The audacity knocked the breath from my lungs. These people had invaded my sanctuary, destroyed my peace, and still acted entitled to more. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "I'd like to report a break-in and trespassing." Anne's face went pale. "You wouldn't dare." "But I would." I gave the dispatcher my address, watching Anne scramble to gather her things. They left, but not before Anne hissed, "You'll regret this. Mom's right about you. You think you're better than us." As their footsteps faded down the hallway, I surveyed the damage. Beyond the mess they'd gone through, my files, my financial documents scattered across my desk. My credit card statements, bank information, even my social security card had been moved. A chill ran down my spine. What else had they taken? What information had they copied? 2 days later, my credit card company called about suspicious charges. $3,000 at Best Buy, $2,000 at Nordstrom, another $1,500 on various online purchases. All made while I was at work by someone who had my card information, but not the physical card. The representative asked security questions that made my blood run cold. "Can you verify the last 4 digits of your social security number?" They already knew. Anne had everything she needed to destroy me financially. I spent hours on the phone, freezing accounts, filing fraud reports, and placing security alerts on my credit. During a brief break, I checked my bank account and nearly vomited. 3 unauthorized transfers totaling $4,000 had been made to an account I didn't recognize. The account name, my mother's. When I confronted her, mother's response was textbook manipulation. "That's repayment for all the money I spent raising you. Do you know how much your law school application fees cost me? Your LSAT prep courses, I kept receipts, Aeneas. You owe me at least $50,000. The delusion was staggering. I'd paid for law school entirely through loans and working 3 jobs. The LSAT prep I'd studied with borrowed books from the library. But in Mother's mind, allowing me to live at home during undergrad was equivalent to funding my entire education. "I need that money back immediately," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "What money?" she replied innocently. "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe if you weren't so paranoid and selfish, these things wouldn't happen to you." Bad karma, Anais. Friday night, I received a text from Cousin Tracy. "Family meeting at Aunt Melinda's tomorrow. We need to discuss your behavior." The summons felt like walking into an ambush, but I went anyway, hoping to clear the air. I should have trusted my instincts. The intervention was already in session when I arrived. 20 relatives packed into Aunt Melinda's living room, faces ranging from disappointed to openly hostile. Mother sat in the center like a queen, holding court, Anne beside her with fake tears ready to deploy. "Aeneas." Uncle Robert began, clearly appointed as the family spokesman. "We're here because we love you and we're concerned about the person you've become." The person I'd become, the only one in 3 generations to graduate from law school, the only one with stable employment and no criminal record. They'd prepared a list, actual printed copies distributed like an indictment. Aeneas's failures as a daughter and sister, it read. The items ranged from missing cousin Jeremy's 3rd wedding to refusing to co-sign Anne's car loan 2 years ago. Number 7, Aunt Melinda read aloud. Refused to donate to Anne's GoFundMe for her spiritual wellness retreat in Cabo. "That was a vacation," I interjected. She posted bikini photos with margaritas the entire week. Aunt Melinda glared at me over her reading glasses. See this attitude, this judgment. This is what we're talking about. Mother stood commanding the room's attention. I've been too ashamed to tell you all this, but Anais promised to pay for Anne's wedding. She gave her word. Now she's reneging because of some petty argument about apartment keys. The lie was so bold, so unexpected that I actually laughed. Anne isn't even engaged, I pointed out. Brandon chose that moment to enter, dropping to one knee in front of Anne with a ring that looked suspiciously like the one I'd reported stolen from my jewelry box. The room erupted in congratulations while I stood frozen watching my family celebrate with my stolen property. So you see? Mother continued once the chaos died down. Anais promised $50,000 for the wedding. We've already put deposits down based on her word. The other relatives murmured disapprovingly at me. The story had been crafted perfectly. I was the wealthy, selfish sister breaking promises and ruining dreams. Show me these deposits, I challenged. Show me any proof I promised anything. Mother's eyes narrowed. Family doesn't need contracts, Anais, but if you want to play lawyer, I have text messages. She pulled out her phone showing screenshots I'd never seen before. Messages from my number promising elaborate financial support. Messages I'd never sent. The technical violation felt worse than the emotional one. They'd spoofed my number, created false evidence. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was conspiracy, fraud, identity theft on a coordinated scale. As I looked around the room at relatives ready to testify to my cruelty, I realized how deep this went. That night, I returned home to find my apartment in chaos. Every piece of professional clothing I owned lay in piles, most stained or torn. My laptop was missing. My legal files were scattered and coffee-soaked. A note on my mirror written in lipstick borrowed your boring clothes for the wedding planning XOXO Anne. The landlord called while I surveyed the damage. Miss Johnson, I've received some concerning reports about wild parties and property damage. I've also been informed you're subletting without permission, which violates your lease. I need to conduct an inspection immediately. The eviction notice was bogus, but it looked real enough. Someone had forged my signature on subletting documents complete with fabricated tenant complaints. The timestamp showed it was submitted while I was in the family intervention. They'd coordinated everything perfectly. My work phone rang. Harrison from HR, his tone unusually formal. Anais, we need to discuss the complaint filed against you. Can you come in early Monday? A complaint. My hands shook as I asked for details. I can't discuss it over the phone, but it involves allegations of using firm resources for personal legal matters and creating a hostile work environment. Barnaby texted me that night. Heard through the grapevine that someone claiming to be your sister called HR about you using company time and resources to harass your family. Also said you've been stealing from the firm to fund a gambling addiction. It's obviously BS, but Harrison has to investigate. I'm happy to vouch for you. The gambling addiction was a nice touch. Creative. I'd never even bought a lottery ticket, but truth didn't matter anymore. They were attacking from every angle, dismantling my life piece by piece. As I sat among the ruins of my apartment, I finally understood. This wasn't about Anne needing a place to stay. This was about destroying me for the crime of succeeding. The breaking point came Sunday morning. Natasha, my best friend since college, called crying. Anais, I'm so sorry. I know you're going through a lot, but I can't be involved anymore. Your mom called my employer, told them I was helping you hide money from your family. I can't risk my job. I'm sorry. 20 years of friendship ended with a phone call. Mother had found everyone important to me and poisoned those relationships too. The isolation was surgical precise, cut off from family, friends, and soon my career. I realized with crystal clarity that this wouldn't stop until I had nothing left to take. Monday's meeting with HR was a masterclass in character assassination. Harrison sat across from me, his face grave as he read from a file inches thick. We've received multiple complaints about your behavior both from family members and anonymous sources within the firm. There are allegations of time theft using company resources for personal legal matters, creating disruptions in the workplace, and most seriously, embezzling client funds. The embezzlement accusation hit like a sledgehammer. That's absolutely false. I managed my voice barely steady. I need to see this evidence. Harrison's expression softened slightly. I believe you, Anais. Your record here has been exemplary, but we have to investigate. You'll be placed on administrative leave with pay while we sort this out. Leave meant losing the Peterson merger. It meant my reputation taking a hit that might never recover. As I packed my office under security supervision, whispers followed me down the hallway. 3 years of building my career destroyed in 3 weeks by family who claimed to love me. That evening, grandmother called. Her voice, usually warm and comforting, sounded broken. Anais, sweetheart, I don't have much time left. The doctors say maybe 6 months. I just want my family to be together before I go. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive your mother and sister for me? The timing was too convenient. I'd seen grandmother 2 weeks ago at her weekly card game, where she'd beaten everyone soundly and bragged about her perfect health results. Grandmother, did the doctor really say 6 months? A pause. Then quieter. Your mother said. She said it would help bring you home. So they'd recruited grandmother into their lies, using her as an emotional weapon. The cruelty of it made me physically sick. I threw up twice that night, my body finally rebelling against the constant stress. The anxiety attacks started then, walking me at 3 a.m., gasping for air, chest tight with panic. Tuesday brought new horrors. Mrs. Chen knocked on my door, looking uncomfortable. Anais, I'm sorry, but I had to tell the landlord about the parties, the smell of drugs, the noise, and that young man threatened me when I complained. Said he knew where I lived. Well, obviously he did, but the way he said it. Brandon had threatened my 70-year-old neighbor. The couple who'd been nothing but kind to me since I moved in were now afraid in their own home because of my family. I apologized profusely, but the damage was done. The landlord had received enough complaints to begin eviction proceedings. Anne's party planning continued from afar. Wedding vendors called my phone non-stop, confirming orders I hadn't placed, a $10,000 flower arrangement, a $20,000 venue booking, all under my name, using my contact information, but with credit card numbers I didn't recognize. Each vendor threatened legal action when I tried to cancel orders I'd never made. My health deteriorated rapidly. I couldn't keep food down. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by phone calls, texts, and the constant anxiety of what they'd do next. Clumps of hair came out in the shower. My hands developed tremors that made it difficult to type. When the chest pain started during a panic attack, I finally went to the ER. Severe stress reaction, the doctor diagnosed. Your blood pressure is dangerously high for someone your age. Are you under unusual pressure? I laughed bitterly. Unusual didn't begin to cover it. She prescribed anxiety medication and told me to remove stressors from my life. If only it were that simple. The financial investigation revealed the full scope of Anne's identity theft. She'd opened 6 credit cards in my name, maxing each one within days. Total debt $38,000. She'd applied for personal loans using my information, though thankfully most were denied due to the fraud alerts I'd placed. The ones that went through totaled another $15,000. My credit score, once a pristine 760, plummeted to 420. Years of careful financial management destroyed in 3 weeks. The attorney I consulted laid out the brutal truth. You can file charges and pursue this criminally, or try to handle it as a civil matter. Criminal charges mean your sister likely goes to jail. Good, I said without hesitation. The attorney looked surprised. Most people struggle with sending family to prison. I thought of my trembling hands, my destroyed career, my frightened elderly neighbors. Most people haven't been systematically destroyed by their family. Wednesday night, Anne threw another party in my apartment while I was at the lawyer's office. How she'd made another copy of the key before I changed the locks, probably during those first chaotic days. The police found 15 people in my home, drugs on the coffee table, and Brandon passed out in my bed. My neighbors had called in a domestic disturbance. "Ma'am, are these people your guests?" the officer asked. I stood in my own doorway like a stranger looking at the destruction. "No, they're trespassing. I want them all arrested." Anne screamed as they handcuffed her. "You're really doing this. Your own sister mom was right about you. You're not family anymore." But the damage was already done. The landlord served me with an eviction notice the next morning. 30 days to vacate based on lease violations and police reports. My sanctuary, my hard-won independence, gone. I'd have an eviction on my record, making it nearly impossible to rent anywhere decent. Thursday's mail brought the wedding bills. Apparently, Anne had signed contracts totaling over $100,000 in my name. Wedding planners, caterers, venues, and photographers all expected payment for services I'd never agreed to. Each one threatened legal action. My phone rang constantly with collection calls for debts I didn't owe. The final straw came Friday morning. I woke to find my car missing. Reported stolen, I assumed Anne had taken it, but the truth was worse. It had been repossessed. Somehow, she'd managed to take out a title loan against my vehicle, missed the payments, and triggered repossession. My means of getting to work gone. Barnaby found me crying in the firm's parking garage, having walked 5 miles in heels because I couldn't afford an Uber after freezing my accounts. "This has to stop," he said firmly. "You're going to make yourself seriously ill. Where are you staying tonight?" I hadn't told anyone I'd been sleeping in my office since the eviction notice. Hotel rooms were expensive, and I needed every penny for legal fees. "I'm fine," I lied. Barnaby saw through it immediately. "You're staying with me, no arguments, and we're going to fix this, Anais, I promise." As I sat in Barnaby's guest room that night, finally safe for the first time in weeks, I made a decision. They wanted war. They'd get one. But I'd fight on my terms with the law as my weapon. The trembling victim phase was over. It was time to become the lawyer I'd trained to be. Saturday morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. Barnaby's guest room was quiet, safe, and most importantly, gave me space to think strategically. Over coffee, I laid out my battle plan. "I need to document everything," I told Barnaby. "Every text, every forged document, every witness who saw the destruction." He smiled for the first time since this started. "Now you sound like the brilliant lawyer I know." We spent the weekend building my case. Barnaby had connections throughout the legal community, and word of my situation had spread. To my surprise, offers of help poured in. Sarah Chen, a forensic accountant, volunteered to trace the fraudulent transactions. Marcus Rivera from criminal law offered to handle the identity theft charges pro bono. "Anne screwed over my cousin last year," he explained. "Similar pattern. This ends now." The pattern was the key. Once we started investigating, we found Anne had done this before. Many times. Cousin Tracy came forward with documentation from when Anne lived with her for just a few weeks that turned into 6 months of stolen credit cards and destroyed property. Our cousin Jeremy revealed Anne had taken out loans in his name during his deployment overseas. Uncle Dennis admitted Anne had sold his deceased wife's jewelry while house-sitting. Each victim had stayed silent out of family loyalty and mother's guilt trips. But together, we painted a picture of serial fraud spanning years. Mother had always known, always enabled, always helped Anne escape consequences. The family meeting at Aunt Melinda's house. Half the attendees had been Anne's victims at some point, too afraid or ashamed to speak up. Monday morning, I walked into the district attorney's office with 3 boxes of evidence. The prosecutor, Janet Williams, listened intently as I laid out the case. "This is extensive," she said, reviewing the documentation. "With multiple victims across several years, we're looking at serious charges. Your sister could face up to 15 years. Oh, good. I repeated my earlier sentiment. Janet studied me. You're sure about pressing charges? Family cases can get messy. I thought about my neighbors frightened in their own home, my career hanging by a thread, my health in ruins. My family made their choice. Now I'm making mine. The arrest happened Tuesday afternoon. Anne was at a salon getting her hair done for wedding planning on my credit card when the police arrived. The footage, which someone helpfully posted on social media, showed her screaming about her psycho sister while being led away in handcuffs. Mother's reaction was predictable. She called from 15 different numbers, leaving increasingly unhinged voicemails. You've killed your grandmother. She had a heart attack when she heard, "How can you live with yourself?" I knew better than to believe her, but I called the hospital anyway. Grandmother was fine, irritated at being used as a prop in Mother's drama. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, she told me. Your mother has enabled Anne for too long. Maybe this will finally teach them both a lesson. The investigation at work took a positive turn when IT discovered the complaint emails came from IP addresses traced to Anne's apartment and Mother's house. The embezzlement allegations fell apart when forensic accounting showed every cent meticulously accounted for. The gambling addiction claims were so absurd that HR actually apologized for having to investigate them. Harrison called personally. Aeneas, I'm deeply sorry for what you've been through. We'd like you to return immediately with a formal apology from the firm and consideration for the distress this caused. The Peterson merger team specifically requested you back. The relief was overwhelming. My career at least could be salvaged. But the personal attacks continued. Mother launched a social media campaign painting me as a mentally unstable daughter persecuting my poor, innocent sister. She posted old family photos with captions about better times before Aeneas became consumed with greed and hatred. The comment sections became battlegrounds between people who believed her and those who knew the truth. Then Brandon made a critical mistake. He approached Barnaby at a bar trying to dig up dirt about me. She's probably sleeping with you, right? That's how she affords that apartment. Anne says she's always used men for money. Barnaby recorded the entire conversation on his phone, including Brandon's offer to split whatever money Anne gets from the lawsuit if you help us prove Aeneas is unstable. Wednesday brought the restraining order hearing. I sat in court watching Mother and Anne whisper furiously with their public defender. The evidence was overwhelming. Phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts, the forged documents, witness testimonies from neighbors, coworkers, and other family victims. The judge's decision was swift and decisive. I'm granting the protective order against both respondents. No contact, direct or indirect, including through third parties. Violation will result in immediate arrest. Anne exploded. She's stealing our family. She's the one who should be arrested. Look at her sitting there, all smug in her fancy suit while we suffer. The judge threatened contempt charges if she didn't control herself. Mother's mask finally slipped completely. You were always jealous of Anne, she hissed at me. She's pretty fun, people like her. You're just a cold, calculating witch who thinks money makes you better than us. There it was. The truth beneath years of manipulation. Mother resented my success, my independence, my refusal to enable Anne's behavior. She'd rather have me broken and dependent than thriving on my own terms. The revelation was liberating. I wasn't losing a mother. I was escaping an enemy who happened to share my DNA. The eviction situation resolved when my landlord reviewed the full evidence. I apologize, Miss Johnson. It's clear you were the victim here. The eviction notice is withdrawn, and I'm happy to provide a reference letter for your records. Mrs. Chen and her husband brought me cookies and a card signed by all the neighbors. We never believed those lies, she assured me. You're a good neighbor, Anais. We're glad you're staying. Community support emerged from unexpected places. Partners at the firm offered legal resources. Colleagues who'd witnessed Mother's lobby performance expressed outrage on my behalf. Even opposing counsel on various cases reached out with sympathy and support. The legal community was small, and word traveled fast about someone trying to destroy one of their own. Anne's desperation grew as her legal troubles mounted. She tried approaching Barnaby directly, showing up at his apartment building in a low-cut dress. Security footage caught her propositioning him in the lobby. "Help me prove Aeneas is lying and I'll make it worth your while. I know you want me. Everyone always wants me more than her." Barnaby's rejection was firm and documented. Another charge to add to the pile: attempted witness tampering. The forensic accountant uncovered the full extent of the financial fraud. Anne and Mother had been planning this for months. Bank records showed Mother had been slowly draining a joint account she'd convinced me to open for emergencies years ago. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as they prepared for the big con. Total stolen through various means: $67,000. Friday's development was the most shocking. Uncle Robert called, his voice unusually subdued. "Aeneas, I owe you an apology. We found out your mother has been doing this for years. She stole from grandmother's estate, took out loans in my name, even cashed savings bonds meant for the grandchildren. We were all too embarrassed to admit we'd been conned." The family fracture was complete. Those who'd attacked me at the intervention now shared their own horror stories. Aunt Melinda discovered Mother had been using her Social Security number for utility bills. Cousin Jeremy found loans he'd never taken. The golden image Mother projected hid a decades-long pattern of financial exploitation. As I prepared for the criminal trial, I felt something shifting. The trembling anxiety was replaced by righteous determination. They'd tried to destroy me for succeeding honestly while they schemed and stole. But I'd survived. More than that, I'd fought back using the very skills they'd mocked. The law degree they called fancy was now the sword cutting through their web of lies. The trial began on a gray Monday morning in September. I sat behind the prosecutor's table, my presence a silent reminder of what Anne and Mother had tried to steal. Anne entered in an orange jumpsuit, her perpetual smirk replaced by genuine fear. Mother, out on bail, dressed like she was attending a charity luncheon, still playing the martyred parent for any audience she could find. The prosecutor's opening statement was devastating. Janet Williams laid out a pattern of fraud, theft, and harassment spanning years and multiple victims. The defendant didn't just steal money, she explained to the jury. She systematically attempted to destroy her sister's life out of jealousy and greed, aided and abetted by a mother who chose enabling overparenting. When I took the stand, I spoke clearly and calmly, presenting facts without emotion. The defense attorney, clearly grasping at straws, tried to paint me as a cold, unfeeling sister who'd abandoned family. "Isn't it true you refused to help your sister when she was homeless?" I met his gaze steadily. "My sister was never homeless. She was evicted for not paying rent despite having money for vacations and luxury items. She chose not to pay bills, assuming family would cover for her. I chose not to enable that behavior." The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents, recorded conversations, witness testimony from neighbors, employers, and family members. When Brandon took the stand as a witness for the defense, he crumbled under cross-examination, admitting Anne had bragged about taking Aeneas for everything she's worth because she owes us for being such a stuck-up witch. Mother's testimony was a masterclass in narcissistic delusion. She portrayed herself as a devoted parent trying to keep her family together, destroyed by one daughter's greed and heartlessness. But the prosecutor had done her homework. "Mrs. Johnson, can you explain these bank transfers from Anaïs's account to yours?" Mother's mask slipped. "I deserve that money. Do you know what I sacrificed raising her? The opportunities I gave up." "What opportunities?" Janet pressed. "According to records, you've never held steady employment. Your daughter, Anaïs, has been contributing to household expenses since she was 16. Can you explain these loans in your son-in-law's name? These forged documents using your brother's information?" The facade crumbled entirely. Mother's entitled rage exploded in court. They all owe me. I'm the matriarch of this family. Without me, none of them would have anything. The judge had to call for order as Mother screamed about ungrateful children and family betrayal. Anne watched her mother's breakdown with the first genuine emotion I'd seen: fear mixed with recognition that her enabler was falling apart. Without Mother's protection and manipulation, Anne was just another criminal facing consequences. Uncle Robert testified about discovering the depth of Mother's deceptions. She convinced us all that Aeneas was selfish and cruel. We believed her because it was easier than admitting we'd been fools. Patricia had stolen from most of us over the years, but she always had an excuse, always made us feel guilty for questioning her. The most damaging testimony came from an unexpected source. Grandmother's caretaker Maria had contacted the prosecutor with information. Mrs. Johnson has been telling the family that grandmother is dying using it to manipulate them, but she's also been intercepting grandmother's Social Security checks and cashing savings bonds meant for the grandchildren's education. Grandmother herself testified via video link, her voice strong despite her age. I'm ashamed of what my daughter has become. She raised Anne to be just like her, a parasite living off others' hard work. Aeneas was the only one who escaped, and Patricia couldn't stand it. She had to destroy her for succeeding honestly. The family secret Uncle Robert had mentioned came out during Mother's financial records review. Grandfather had left a substantial inheritance to be divided among the grandchildren for education. Mother, as executor, had stolen every penny, using it to fund her lifestyle while telling us the money was tied up in legal issues. The fund would have paid for my law school entirely. Instead, I had 6 figures in student loans while Mother spent the money on designer bags and cosmetic procedures. Anne's final attempt at manipulation came during her own testimony. She cried prettily, talking about mental health struggles and addiction issues she'd never had. I just wanted my sister's love and approval. When she rejected me, I spiraled. I'm seeking help now. But the prosecutor presented evidence that Anne was attending therapy sessions at a spa, billing them to a credit card in my name, even while out on bail. The verdict came after just 3 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts: identity theft, fraud, conspiracy, harassment, cyber-stalking, criminal threatening. The judge, a stern woman who'd seen too many family cases, showed no sympathy during sentencing. The deliberate, calculated nature of these crimes, combined with the complete lack of remorse, warrants the maximum penalty. Miss Anne Johnson, I sentence you to 8 years in state prison. Anne's scream echoed through the courtroom. 8 years for borrowing from family. This is insane. Aeneas, please, tell them you forgive me. But I remained silent, feeling nothing but relief. Mother received 3 years for conspiracy and fraud, with additional federal charges pending for the Social Security theft. The civil trial recovered most of the stolen money, though Anne had spent considerable amounts on nonsense. The wedding vendors agreed to cancel contracts once they understood the fraud. My credit slowly began recovering, though the scars would last years. More importantly, the restraining orders became permanent, protecting me from any future contact. The aftermath revealed more victims. Anne's high school friend reached out, sharing how Anne had destroyed her credit at 18. A former roommate described identity theft that took years to resolve. Each story followed the same pattern: Mother swooping in to guilt-trip victims into silence. The prosecutor was considering additional charges based on the new testimonies. My firm not only welcomed me back, but offered a promotion. The way you handled this situation showed exceptional legal skills and personal strength, Harrison explained. The partners want you on the white-collar crime team. The Peterson merger had waited for my return, the client specifically requesting the brilliant young lawyer who took down a fraud ring while under attack. Barnaby and I grew closer through the ordeal. What started as colleague support evolved into genuine partnership. I've never seen someone handle a crisis with such grace, he told me over dinner at our favorite restaurant. Though I could have done without your sister propositioning me in my lobby. We laughed the sound foreign after months of stress. I'm just glad security got it on camera, I replied. Your face was priceless. The extended family slowly healed from Mother's decades of manipulation. Aunt Melinda started hosting regular dinners for the Survivors Club, as we jokingly called ourselves. Cousins reconnected without Mother's toxic influence poisoning relationships. Uncle Robert apologized repeatedly for the intervention. We should have seen the pattern, should have protected you instead of attacking you. 6 months later, I received a letter from Anne in prison. Against my better judgment, I read it. No apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just complaints about prison conditions and how unfair it was that one tiny mistake ruined her life. She ended with a request for commissary money. I shredded the letter and smiled, finally free from any lingering guilt. Mother's letters went straight to my attorney unread. She'd lost her audience, her flying monkeys, her power over the family. The matriarch who'd ruled through guilt and manipulation was now just another inmate. Her empire of lies collapsed. The family she'd claimed to protect had thrived in her absence, finally free to have genuine relationships without her toxic influence. 1 year later, I stood in my new apartment boxes scattered around the spacious living room. The promotion had come with a substantial raise enough to afford a place in a building with excellent security and no bad memories. Barnaby helped me arrange furniture, our easy domesticity, a far cry from the chaos of the previous year. Therapy had been essential to my healing. Dr. Martinez helped me understand the lifetime of conditioning that made me an easy target for family exploitation. You were trained from birth to feel guilty for your successes, she explained during one session. Your mother created a dynamic where your achievements were seen as betrayals, something you owed the family for rather than celebrated. The trauma manifested in unexpected ways. I'd freeze when someone knocked on my door unexpectedly. Unknown numbers sent my heart racing, but slowly, steadily, I reclaimed my peace. EMDR therapy helped process the worst memories. Support groups for family fraud victims showed me I wasn't alone. Many successful people had parasitic relatives who felt entitled to their achievements. My relationship with Barnaby deepened beyond the trauma bond. We discovered shared interests in hiking, documentary films, and terrible reality TV. He met my chosen family, the friends and colleagues who'd stood by me. I met his sister who'd overcome her own toxic patterns. Family isn't blood, she told me over wine. It's who shows up when life gets ugly. Work became a source of pride again, rather than stress. The white-collar crime division suited my skills perfectly, helping other fraud victims navigate the legal system. My personal experience gave me empathy and insight that made me effective. You understand what it's like, one client told me tearfully. When family steals from you, they take more than money. They steal trust itself. The firm recognized my unique perspective, having me speak at conferences about family fraud and identity theft. My story, sanitized for professional audiences, helped other victims understand they weren't alone. The shame that keeps people silent enables predators like Anne and Mother. By speaking openly, I helped break that cycle. Anne served 4 years of her 8-year sentence, released early for good behavior. The parole board notified me as required by law. She'd moved to California, supposedly entering a rehabilitation program. I hired a private investigator to verify she was staying away. The last report showed her working at a retail store, living in a halfway house, still blaming everyone but herself for her situation. Mother served 2 years, then disappeared somewhere in Florida. Uncle Robert heard she was running the same scams on distant relatives who didn't know the history. Some people never change. The family maintained an informal warning network, alerting each other when she surfaced. Her legacy was paranoia and broken trust that would take generations to fully heal. Grandmother passed peacefully in her sleep, having updated her will to exclude Mother entirely. The small inheritance she left me came with a note: for the granddaughter who showed me what real strength looks like. Use this for something that brings you joy, not obligation. I donated part to a legal aid society helping fraud victims and used the rest for a celebration of life that Mother wasn't invited to attend. The wedding happened on a perfect October day, small and intimate as Barnaby and I wanted. 20 guests, all chosen family who'd earned their place in our lives. No drama, no guilt trips, no toxic relatives demanding invitations. Tracy served as my maid of honor, joking that at least Anne hadn't stolen this wedding. Barnaby's sister officiated, speaking about creating families of choice. My vows included a line that made him cry. You saw me at my worst and helped me become my best. You stood guard while I rebuilt myself from ruins. That's the family I choose, the love I trust. His vows promised to always be my soft place to land in a hard world. The reception was joyful, free from the undercurrent of manipulation that had poisoned family gatherings my entire life. We honeymooned in New Zealand, as far from drama as geography allowed. For 2 weeks, my phone stayed off. No guilt trips, no emergencies, no manipulations, just mountains and peace, and the man who'd helped me reclaim my life. I sent postcards to my chosen family and felt the freedom of owing nothing to those who'd tried to destroy me. Back home, life settled into pleasant rhythms. Sunday dinners with friends, hiking trips with Barnaby, pro bono work for fraud victims, therapy maintenance to keep old patterns from resurfacing. I learned to recognize manipulation tactics in others, setting boundaries early and firmly. The hypervigilance faded, replaced by healthy awareness. 2 years after the trial, I received a message through my attorney. Anne wanted to apologize, claimed she'd found religion and needed to make amends. The old me might have felt obligated to listen. The healed me recognized this as another manipulation tactic, step 9 of a 12-step program twisted for personal gain. The restraining order remained in place. Some bridges once burned should stay ash. My success continued to grow, but now I shared it with worthy people. Mentoring young lawyers from difficult families, volunteering with identity theft victims, building a life rich in genuine connection rather than obligatory interaction. Every achievement was mine to celebrate without guilt or fear of becoming a target. The apartment Barnaby and I shared became a haven of peace. No surprise visitors, no copied keys, no violated boundaries. Friends joked about our security system, not understanding it represented more than physical safety. It was the tangible reminder that I controlled access to my life. The people who entered our home were invited, welcomed, chosen. Looking back, losing my toxic family was the greatest gift they inadvertently gave me. Their betrayal forced me to examine every relationship, keeping only those that added value. It taught me that blood means nothing without respect, that success threatens those who choose victimhood, that some people see your achievements as their ATM. But mostly it taught me that I was stronger than their worst efforts to break me. Every attack had been met with legal consequences. Every lie had been exposed by truth. Every attempt to isolate me had revealed true friends. They'd aimed to destroy me, but instead forged me into someone unbreakable. The last time I accidentally glimpsed Mother's social media, she was spinning new tales of ungrateful children to fresh audiences. Anne had started a GoFundMe for some new crisis. The patterns continued, but without me as their victim. I closed the laptop and went to dinner with my chosen family, grateful for the life I'd built from the ashes of what they'd tried to burn. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from those who claim to love you while actively destroying you. Family isn't an obligation, but a privilege, one that can be revoked for cause. My story isn't about revenge, but about justice, not about hatred, but about healing. Most importantly, it's about choosing yourself when family demands you choose them instead. To those watching who recognize their own stories in mine, know that you deserve peace. You deserve relationships without manipulation. You deserve success without guilt. Blood doesn't grant anyone the right to destroy your life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for toxic family is to love them from a distance so vast they can't reach you to inflict more harm. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If my story resonated with you, if you've faced similar family betrayals, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories matter, and you're not alone. Please hit the like button if you believe in protecting yourself from toxic family dynamics. Subscribe for more real-life stories of overcoming adversity and building lives of authentic joy. And if you know someone trapped in family manipulation, share this story. Sometimes seeing others escape gives us permission to save ourselves. Remember, the family you choose is more important than the family you are given. Guard your peace, protect your success, and never apologize for refusing to enable those who would destroy you. Until next time, this is Anais reminding you that thriving despite those who wanted you to fail is the ultimate victory. Stay strong, set boundaries, and build the life you deserve.